Hello guys and welcome back. So in this section we'll talk about creating components. Now to create a component, as we have already discussed, we can use the ng generate command. So we can type in ng space g for generate, c for command, c for component, and then the name of our component. Let's say what should I call it? Let's say chat. Okay, so now it will create a component named, it will first create a folder named chat, inside which it will create four files: chat's component file, class file, template file, and the spec file, or the types, or the mm, test case file. Okay, but I generally prefer to create all my components inside a folder named components. So what I will do to make it create a folder named components as well would be to specify the name of the name of the folder I wanted to create. So something like this. Okay, now inside the app folder it will create a folder named components, inside which it will create a folder named chat, and inside that chat folder it will create those four files for me. Okay, and it says that it has also updated the app module. So if I have a look at the app module, it has added the chat component to the declarations array. Okay, now since the chat component has been added to the declarations array of the app module, I can use it inside the app module. So if, say, I go to the component class here, its selector is app-chat. So I'll just copy that. Okay, and in the HTML it says just chat works. I'll just type in something like this is the chat components template and save this. Okay, now if I wanted to add this component, I'll have to add it to the root component, that is my app .component.html. Okay, so let's just add that to the bottom here. Okay, and save this. Now my app is running already. Okay, and it has compiled successfully as well, so I can just go to my app now, and I can see that my component template is already there. If I inspect this element, this particular one, I can see that there is a app-chat tag inside which it has injected the template, the contents of the template of the chat component HTML. Okay, all right, now let's say I have some properties in here. So I'll define some properties, like say um, string interpolation, or let's say interpolated string, which would be of type string, and the value I'll assign as something like this. So this is the string that is getting displayed by interpolation. Okay, now if this is something that I wanted to get displayed onto the template, okay, I can I'll just remove this and I'll place that interpolated string variable inside curly braces. Okay, and then if I save this here and this here, go back, I should see this string that is getting displayed by interpolation. Okay, so that is something that you can do to display some data from your component class onto the template. So that is the first way of using it, and this is one way interaction. Okay, so remember we talked about four sorts of interactions that we have between a DOM and the component. This is the first way of doing it. So we have a template, we have a property named interpolated string here on the component, and we are using the string interpolation syntax to display it on the DOM like this. Okay. All right. Now let's say that we have say a variable named property binded string, which is of type string, and I'll just copy the content of this right here. So this is the string that is getting displayed by not interpolation this time, but by property binding. Okay, I'll save this, and now let's say I have let's create a line break here and also a horizontal rule, I guess. I don't need a line break in that case then. Okay, so now let's say I have an input. Okay, its type is text. Now there is a value attribute to this input text, right? So if I type in something like value and I type in the text, this is the value, save this and go back to my project, I'll see that the value is, this is the value of this input field. Okay, but let's say I wanted the value here to be equal to this to the value of this property right here. So I can in that case use the property binding syntax. To use the property binding syntax, we will surround the property that we want to bind to with square brackets like this, and then in here we will specify the name of the property. Okay, if I save this now and go back, it will say that this string that is getting displayed by property binding. Okay, so this is how you can use property bindings to display some values that you have declared or defined onto your template. Okay, now we can also, and this is the second way of interaction between your component and your DOM, and again this is also one way, like string interpolation, this is also from the component to your DOM. Okay, so you cannot do anything on the DOM to change this value right here. Okay, now let's say I have a button, okay, that says click me, and let's say you wanted to run a function when this button was clicked. Okay, and let's say we have a function defined in here. I'll call it on button click. Okay, and let's say in this we just alert the button was clicked. Okay, now I have some code inside a handler function on button click, and I want this function to get called when this button was clicked. Okay, so on this button there is a click event that I can listen to, and for doing that I'll have to wrap the event name, that is click, inside parenthesis like so, and then in here I'll have to specify the function that I'll be calling. Okay, let me just save this and this. Okay, now if I go back to my application here, I have a button. If I click on this button, I get some error. I guess I did something wrong. Let's just clear this and reload it. I guess it was not properly compiled at that point. So let's just click on the click me button again, and yeah, the alert was then triggered. The function was triggered and it alerted with this text. The button was clicked. Okay, let's click that again, and again that happened. Okay. All right, so we have looked at three ways of interaction between your component class and your template. Okay, there's one final way of component interaction, and that is two-way data binding. Now, for two-way data binding, you'll have to import the forms module. Without doing that, it will throw an error. Let's just try that though. Okay, let's say I have a property named binded to ways, which is a string, and this is I supply the value, this is binded to ways. Okay. Now two-way data bindings are generally used in case of input fields. Okay, so let's say we have an input type text. Now to use the two-way data binding syntax, we'll have to use the ng model directive. Okay, so in here I'll type in ng model, and in here I'll specify the name of the property that I want to bind to, this one. Okay, and let's just say that right after this I also binded the same property using string interpolation, so that I'm also able to see what the actual or what the current value is for that property. Okay, so let's save this and let's go back to the application and see. And it says that ng model cannot be binded to, since it is not a known property of input. Okay, so as I said, we'll be getting an error if we don't use and import the forms module in here. So let's just quickly do that. Forms module. Okay, now forms module is something that I'll have to import from Angular/forms. Okay, I'll save this, and let's also say provide a name attribute to this field. I'll name this, say, binded to ways. I'll save this. Okay, and now the text inside this text field says binded to ways, and the para text also says binding to ways, or this is binded to ways. If I clear this, the text right below it will also get cleared. If I type something in here, then the same value will get updated in real time uh, as well. Okay, so this is how you can use the two-way data binding syntax. So in this section we talked about the ways in which our template, this one, and the component class, this one, can interact with each other. The first one was string interpolation syntax, wherein we simply wrap the string value or the property inside which there is a string in interpolation syntax in curly braces, and it gets displayed. The second one was property binding, wherein we used the value property of an input tag to bind to the property binded string property that we had inside our template, inside our TypeScript class. Then we used two-way data binding by first importing the forms module, okay, and then by defining a property, and then by using the ng model attribute here, or the ng model directive here, and finally we used um, event binding to listen to DOM events and reacting to those DOM events by handlers or by functions that we created inside our TypeScript class. Okay. All right, guys. So that was it regarding component interaction and what components are and how to create them. In the next section, we'll have a look at some topics like view child and content child, and I'll tell you in the next video what they actually are. So I'll see you on the other side. Thanks a lot.